Okay, so it won't come as a surprise that 2019 definitely had some bad animated movies, but for some strange reason, out of all the bad animated movies I saw that year, Wonder Park was the one I wanted to like the most. When the first trailer came out in 2018, it genuinely caught my interest. A story of a little girl discovering a magical theme park? How could this not be good? And as more and more trailers came out, I admittedly became a little less interested, but otherwise still keen on seeing it. Then when the day came and I finally saw it at the cinema, I initially thought the film was fine. Nothing special, nothing harmful, just fine. But then later, when I rewatched it once for a deeper analysis and again for this video, I discovered a lot more problems with it than I did before. Which is why it kind of pains me to admit that in this day and age, yeah, I think this movie's pretty lackluster. That's not to say it's awful, but it has some strange decisions for a kid's film. But alright, one step at a time. We center on a little girl named June, who imagines of a wondrous place known as Wonderland. Yeah, not Wonder Park like the title of this film. Anyway, she loves coming up with all sorts of rides alongside her friends and her mother. But when her mother gets sick and has to leave for a bit, June starts to lose the spark of imagination and puts Wonderland away. So her father decides to send her on a camping trip, but when she believes he won't be able to take care of himself, she leaves for home but unexpectedly comes across Wonderland herself, only for her to discover that the whole place is in a wreck thanks to a group of chimpan zombies, and their leader Peanut has been captured and thrown into this dark cloud that I believe is where all the parts go with it. Alright, so what is it with this movie? What made me want to like it so badly despite how it turned out? Well, look at it! This has to be one of the cutest looking films I've seen in quite some time. The characters are easy on the eyes, yet still give off some decent expressions. The actual environments in this movie are gorgeous to look at. It's just so distinct and cute. It just gives the movie its own style that I didn't think was possible to do for a film called Wonder Park. That really is the movie's biggest strength, just how it looks. And yet when you take a step back and look at what this movie is going for, it begs the question, how can something like this turn out to be so lackluster? Well, let's look at the trailer. It gives you a feeling of warmth and comfort, like this is preparing you for this lively and colourful film that you can get into easily. It has all these fantasy rides, talking animals, lively animation. What else can that tell you other than you're going to be in for a joyful time? The problem is that the movie itself is the complete opposite of that. What I mean is, whereas about 35% of this movie is trying to be lively and positive, the rest of it has this unnecessarily depressing tone. Now, it's not scathingly sour like Chicken Little or Mickey's Twice Upon a Christmas, but would you ever expect a movie set in a fantasy park to have a little girl coping with possibly losing her mother and then putting that girl in this wasteland where a bunch of monkey zombies are trying to demolish everything in their way while all the animal residents have turned into one-dimensional jerks? Yeah, you probably wouldn't. I suppose it's better to have some negativity in your animated movie. We don't want another troll situation here. But you can't do that when you advertise your own product as this comfort zone to ease yourself into. It gives the world an unnecessarily depressing and kind of mean-spirited tone that feels out of place. It doesn't help that the story is also incredibly generic. I didn't go into this movie expecting anything original, but how many times are we going to have a story about a bunch of talking animals going on some wacky adventure to save something? And when the movie's not trying to do that, it can get a little too ridiculous as well. And I know, for a movie called Wonder Park, that shouldn't be such a big problem. But for example, June and her mother are constantly talking about Wonderland like it's a story. Fair enough. But then during the next scene, June starts doing this in public in front of a group of kids. Almost like they're trying to treat this like real magic. What the hell do these kids think are gonna happen? Some magical flying fish popping out of nowhere? I understand that kids are supposed to have imagination and stuff, but you continue to say that while you have June trying to build a ride representing Wonderland. Doesn't that seem a little bit redundant? But the worst part of the plot is towards the end. Not only does it feel the need to have an unnecessary breakup scene between the main characters, but June discovers a way to fix up the park. Not by sparking her imagination, but because she read some notes that her mother left. Well, wait a minute, I thought this movie was supposed to be about June rediscovering her imagination and spark for Wonderland. How is it that now she knows what to do because she read a note from her mother? Character-wise, there's not a whole lot I can say. The only character I unsurprisingly liked in this movie was June, but just because she's the only character that comes off as somewhat likable. As well as her being given a lot of shit that I ended up feeling sorry for her. The animal characters are too annoying and unnecessary. I get why they need to be there, but they have nothing unique to them other than just running gags. And considering this is a comedy film, the comedy is very lackluster too. I don't think I got one chuckle out of this movie. Maybe every so often I'd have a little nose laugh from whatever June was cooking up or how caring she suddenly becomes towards her father, but that's the most I got out of it. Other than that, as I mentioned before, it resorts to running gags, like how the blue bear keeps falling asleep, the Pumbaa female constantly yelling at people, the two beaver twins who do nothing but ramble on about whatever the hell they're talking about, and John Oliver with this incredibly pointless subplot of him wanting to win the heart of the warthog. It's not funny, comes in when it's not needed, and serves as stupid comedy fodder. And not only that, but even June's best friend has a love plot with her as well, that way too often reminds me of Clyde and Laurie from The Loud House. How dare you remind me of that shit show of a ship, Paramount. I was trying to think if there was anything in this movie that actually left a positive impact on me, and I will admit, when the movie does try to have a nice moment, it is genuinely effective. I like the scene where June finds Peanut and they just talk about their problems. No unnecessary comedy, no stupid conflict, just these two characters talking, and that's all it needs. I will say the message is actually pretty decent. Telling kids about the difficulties of possibly losing a loved one is a pretty deep message for an animated children's film. Even though the message can be really on the nose at times, when it does attempt to take itself seriously, it does leave an impact. Unfortunately, not all of it is handled well, because at the end of the movie, June's mother is actually alive. Alright then. On the one hand, I can give this movie praise for not pulling off the unnecessary parent death cliche, but then I remembered that this movie is all about trying to cope with the death of a parent, yet still trying to keep the spark and imagination alive. I wouldn't have cared either way what they did with June's mother, but this might actually be one of the rare situations where if she did die, it might have been more powerful. I hesitate to say that Wonder Park is an awful movie, since while it does have a very inconsistent pace and story that flies all over the place, it does have some nice animation and some pretty talented voice work. The characters aren't very distinct and some of them can get annoying, but I wouldn't say I despised any of them. I guess since I've seen other animated movies that felt more unpleasant, that it made sitting through Wonder Park a whole lot easier, but I don't think I could even recommend this to kids. There is a TV show coming out, so maybe I'll give that a watch and see if it's any better than the movie. Hell, since it looks to have a more pleasant tone, it possibly could be, but there's still a high chance it could blow hard. Seriously, what the fuck is that thing? Like I said, I did want to like this movie so badly because of its adorable art style and colourful atmosphere, but it's too surrounded and unnecessary cruelty and unfunny writing that caused me to finally admit that, yeah, this movie is pretty bad. Not the worst of the year by a long shot, but this is a ride you can easily skip.